Hey everybody, it's Ron, and today I'm going to be talking about The Gods of Mars. This is the second book in Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom series, or the John Carter series, whatever you'd like to call it. So before we get into this book, I do have a review of the first novel, A Princess of Mars, which I will have linked in the description if you want to check that out first. And now that I'm 2 videos into this series, I've also made a John Carter playlist because I'm going to try and cover all of these books. This has been really fun so far, so jump in and read along if you're new to this series. So The Princess of Mars was a nice quick read, and I loved picking up on all of the influences it had on modern fantasy and space fantasy films, and this book is no different. There was a pretty big cliffhanger last time we were with John Carter because at the end of the first book, he was suddenly transported back to Earth, and this sequel wastes no time getting back to Mars, which I really liked. I was surprised how fast-moving the pace was this time around because A Princess of Mars had a lot of setup to get through in the beginning, but now that this world is established, Burroughs can dive right into the action, and a brilliant move was to have John Carter be transported back to a section of Mars that he's never been to before because it adds a level of mystery to the opening chapter. Even John himself is worried that he was maybe transported to a different planet, and we're introduced to the plant men who are described in painstaking detail, and they sound horrifying. One of the things I like about this series so far is how Burroughs makes Mars, or Barsoom, a fully fleshed out world. When I first started this series, I initially thought it would be boring to have this whole saga be told on one planet, but that's because I'm probably used to multiple one-note planets and other space fantasy stories like Star Wars, for example. There's a planet that's all ice, or a planet that's all desert, and it makes them feel small, but Burroughs treats Mars like a real planet. And just as planet Earth has many countries and different environments, so does Barsoom. So it really keeps things interesting because there's so much to explore. The beginning fight sequence really reminded me of the old Flash Gordon strips. And I know this book came out before that, but both are similar in that there's so much imagination going on that the reader can hardly keep up. Once one conflict is resolved, you're thrown right into something else and introduced to a new creature or a new enemy, and it's thrilling stuff. The only critique I have of this opening with John being reunited with Tars Tarkas is the repetitive nature of the fights, and that's a word I'm going to come back to later in this review as well. There's a nice moment when they're both fighting off the plant men and the white apes, and John Carter is trying to escape in sort of a tiny cave or something, and Tars Tarkas basically tells John to go in and that he'll die to protect him, and that's a nice moment, but I feel like it happens about 4 other times after, and it was a little too much because every battle they find themselves in, they both have to say something like, well, this is the end, and this would be a good death fighting beside you. Tars does this so many times in the beginning of this book that I felt like he actually wanted to die. So yeah, it was almost like he was looking for a reason to go out. I feel like Burroughs could have cut back on that a little bit because I got the point the first time around. The lore is also expanded tremendously in this sequel. We're introduced to the Therns, who are seen as this very religious race on Barsoom, and this book has a theme of religious superstition that runs through until the end, hence the title, The Gods of Mars. I won't spoil too much, but a lot of ancient legends on Barsoom are sort of dispelled in this book, so that was interesting to read about because it changes a lot of minds on this world. I think the absence of Dejah Thoris for most of this story was a good decision, and Burroughs shows a lot of restraint to build up to her and John's reunion. I liked the new character additions as well. We have Thuvia, who is a red Martian imprisoned by the Therns, and on the other side of the coin, there's also Fedor, who is a female Thern. Both of these women take a liking to John Carter, but Thuvia is more classy, whereas Fedor is more of a jilted lover. Another set of foes for John Carter to fight are the Black Pirates, and that confrontation introduces us to Zodar, who is a black Martian that ends up joining forces with Carter. The heart of this story really centers around John and his son Carthoris, who he didn't even know existed. It's hinted at so many times in such an obvious way, and I thought all of that teasing was pretty funny, but it was a nice touch to have father and son fighting for their freedom, and it paves the way for more stories down the line. I will say though, I thought having another arena battle was a little repetitive because we already had that in the first book, and I also thought the kidnappings and rescues got a little repetitive as well towards the end because you have Tars Tarkas getting kidnapped and John has to go save him. And then once that's resolved, Dejah Thoris gets kidnapped and John has to go rescue her. So in a sense, that was a little exhausting, but it at least ends with a good cliffhanger. And I'm interested to see how John is going to get Dejah Thoris out of this trap that Burroughs sets up at the end. So other than a couple minor gripes, this was another really fun entry in this series, and it's anything but slow moving, which I think is the strongest part about it. It's very action-packed, but also interesting and thought-provoking at the same time. I'll be moving on to the Warlord of Mars next, and I can't wait to see what happens. So please be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content, and thanks for watching. Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material, and most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.